Hello and welcome along to the Champ.ie Royal Ascot preview, and we have a fantastic podcast upcoming. We are joined by Ronan Groome from the Irish Field and Mr. Mike Vince, who has all the love he needs after his tip of love for the for the English 1,000 guineas last appearance on the podcast. How are we, gents?
Good, thanks, Barry. Yeah, looking forward to a big week.
Yeah, in very good form, and hopefully it's going to stay that way.
And Denis Hogan, lads. We're just going to hear from Denis, who trains Ireland's highest rated sprinter. And he, of course, goes for the Diamond Jubilee on Saturday. Let's just hear from Denis first of all, and back then, and we'll have a chat about Ascot. So I'm delighted to be joined by trainer Denis Hogan, of course, trainer of Ireland's highest rated sprinter, Sceptical, who heads for Royal Ascot this week. Denis, for anyone who doesn't know the story about Sceptical, his purchase from Godolphin for 2,800, can you maybe tell us a little bit about the background of your relationship with Hilltop Racing and how he was even picked up?
Barry, I would have known the lads at Hilltop there for the last over 10 years, maybe back when they were training for Steve Mahon was training for them. I would have rode for them, and they trained themselves, and I've always kept in touch with them at the races there over the years. And just about 2 years ago, James approached me and said that they were planning on packing in the license themselves, and they were interested in sending the best horses they had down to me. And we got off to a good start, and they've had close to 25 winners since. So we've had a good relationship, and we've been lucky.
And we're heading for Royal Ascot next week. Denis, when he landed in County Tipperary for the first time, did you suspect this fella may be a little bit special?
I did, yeah. I always liked him. He's always a nice model. I didn't know how good he was, obviously, when we first got him, but I just loved him as a model for starters, and obviously the good pedigree, and he was by Exceed and Excel. But I suppose when we started to do fast work, we realised he was very fast, and we always liked him, and we pitched him into Dundalk first time over 5, and he was still a bit green, and he broke slow, and he was just touched off, and I knew there was improvement in him, and he duly went and won well 2 weeks later.
And looking back to Naas last Monday, of course, an amazing day for Denis Hogan and the team. Were you confident, A, I suppose, that he'd handle the turf surface, because he'd never been on that before, and B, that he'd win as cosy as he did?
I was, Barry. We done everything well, but I suppose on paper we'd only won a maiden and 2 handicaps. This was up to listed level, and we did have to step up, but I knew he could, and being honest, I would have been disappointed if he didn't win in Naas. Then he was probably after reaching his peak, but luckily it looks like there's more to come.
And in terms of Royal Ascot, he held an entry, of course, for both the King's Stand on the Tuesday and the Diamond Jubilee on the Saturday. You confirmed on Twitter on Friday that it was the Diamond Jubilee on day 5, which was the choice. What was the main reason, Denis, for choosing that route, the Diamond Jubilee on Saturday upcoming?
I suppose really, we were probably being a bit greedy when we were earmarking the 2 of them, Barry.
Yeah.
He's a very good horse. He's a high class horse, and there's a lot of big races and targets for him throughout the rest of the year, and on into the autumn there's a chance he could travel overseas to a lot of different countries. We had a chat between the 3 of us, and we agreed we weren't going to blackguard him or over race him, and it was suggested that we just take him one race in Ascot, and going through the races it does look the best option for him. I suppose we're sidestepping Batash in the King's Stand, and we're also running over 6 furlongs, which possibly is his best trip. But there was a couple of factors, and then he had raced in Naas only last Monday, and travelling to Ascot would have been, he'd be there now, and this was all happening a bit quick, and the race on Saturday does look a better option for him.
Absolutely. And Frankie is booked, and Joey Sheridan, unfortunately with COVID regulations, misses the ride. Have you spoken to Joey much? Obviously about this situation. How's he taking it in particular?
To be honest, at the start, I didn't really. Joey understands. Joey understands where he's, to be fair, he's very good heading him, and he's very grateful to get to ride him in a listed race, and he done a great job, and he's been a big part of the horse's career, and he rides him out every day and looks after him, and I'm sure he'll be on him again. But I suppose with the regulations for £7 claimers at the time meant he couldn't actually ride over in the UK at the minute.
Yeah, and listen, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of days left for Joey. Frankie, of course, is no bad substitute. But how has Sceptical been actually since Naas? Like, are you happy with his recovery? And when does he actually travel over?
He's due to travel on Wednesday, Barry. He's come out of Naas fine, and he's been cantering away. He probably won't do much more fast work now. He's fitting well. He might have one piece before the race on Saturday. So no, he's well, and we're looking forward to sending him over on Wednesday. And entries should be out tomorrow.
And I believe you may be travelling over, Dennis. Am I right? Did I hear that right? To Ascot, have you the top hat ready?
I don't think we need the top hat this year, Barry. But I'm actually not booked on to go yet, and just trying to weigh up everything and seeing what we're going to be missing here over the next 2 weeks versus going to Ascot with a favourite for a Group 1. It's obviously we'd all love to be there, but the consequences when you come back and 2 weeks isolation, we'll see if we can work around that for what I'm going to have to miss. So I haven't actually booked a flight yet, but we'll see what happens during the week.
Well, look, at fingers crossed, everything goes well for Sceptical, that he gets there in one piece, and that does himself justice, of course, on Saturday upcoming. But in terms of the season ahead, Dennis, 28 winners on the flat last season. What's the team like for the rest of the summer? Like, are you happy with the progress you've made in terms of flat horses? And is there any one, I suppose, for the Champ.ie tracker that you maybe would like to mention between now and the end of the season?
We've to be fair, we had a very good year last year, Barry, and really looking forward to this season. We'll probably have slightly better quality again, and we've some lovely horses and some brilliant owners, and it's exciting to have the likes of him make a challenge. A couple of more very good top handicappers, and the horse that made his debut in Naas there last Monday, Dalvey. He was probably a bit raw and green on the day, but I think he can step up off his first run, and we're looking forward to him throughout the season. Brilliant
stuff. In the same colours, of course, as Sceptical. But listen, Dennis, I want to wish you the very best luck for the week ahead. Thanks very much for speaking to us on the Champ.ie podcast, and stay safe.
Thank you very much.
So great to hear from Denis Hogan, lads, about Sceptical, and of course plans for the Diamond Jubilee next Saturday. Tuesday, lads, we'll kick it off at 150. The Queen Anne Stakes hasn't been won by Aidan O'Brien since 2013 with Declaration of War. Circus Maximus now is your 9-4 favourite, and last seen when fourth in the Breeders' Cup. Ronan, what's your thoughts on this Galileo horse? Where is the value in this race?
It could be with Circus Maximus. I think he's pretty solid, Barry, at the top of the market there. Like the mile division for a few years now, for more or less the last decade, you don't get many 120 horses in it. Circus Maximus, I think, still has the potential to be a 120 plus horse. A really solid year last year. Two Group 1s. I thought he ran quite well in Santa Anita, actually. Another typical European horse, kind of just tapped for toe early and kind of flew home late in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I think he's going to be suited by this track, the straight mile, because I think he's stamina-laden horse by Galileo. If you remember, he actually ran in the Derby last year and ran quite well. I think he finished 5th and 6th, and then Aidan brought him back to a mile for the St James's Palace, and he really kind of powered home that day over the mile. It's interesting. His dam, Duntle, actually won the Duke of Cambridge at Royal Ascot as well, which is obviously over the straight mile. So I think the course is going to suit him. Aidan's team obviously flying as well, and I'm just looking down at his possible rivals here, and Terabellum obviously is interesting, running here for Gosden, but you'd have to be a bit sceptical of whether she'll be fast enough over this mile. See the Stars filly, and I just didn't see much else there. Mustachery is the only 120 horse in the field, and he obviously, if he could run to his best, would have a huge chance. I just think I'd be a bit worried about him starting first time up. I think he's needed his run basically. Well, he's improved from his debut run basically all of his life. He's improved 5 or 6 pounds for his second start of the season. So I wouldn't put anyone off Circus Maximus there at the top of the market, Barry. Whether he's huge value at 5-2 is questionable, but he get my vote anyway. I think he's the right favourite and should be clear favourite as he is.
And Mike, Ronan has just mentioned Terralebrium. She heads the British Challenge, of course, won 10 days ago. See the Stars filly. I thought it was interesting actually, John Gosden's comments to say that like she's quite a hard filly to get fit, and I have to say she interested me, especially at the price is 10-3 now, dropping back in trip.
Fascinating, this race. I don't think it's a very good Queen Anne. I think there's a lot in here that, if you look at it, there's very few proven Group 1 performers in this. But then Mustachery, in fairness to Ronan, I wouldn't disagree. I'm wondering to myself, why is Jim Crowley on Mahatta and not on Mustachery? When you bear in mind that he's obviously the first jockey to shake Hamdan. And I actually think Jim Crowley's going to have a really good week. He's a knocking good bet to be top jockey in my book. But the one I like here, and I would take a chance on it, and I've seen that there's about 14-1. I think he's a knocking good each way bet, is the Northern horse, Space Traveller. Won the Jersey last year, then went to America, didn't do at all badly in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Been kept fresh for this. Yard know what it takes because they won it with Ribchester. And if Circus Maximus is the good thing, somebody's got to be second or third. And surely Accidental Agent is not going to do the dirty on us again. And I think Space Traveller at a double figure SP is a knocking good each way bet.
The next race we're going to preview is the 335 at Ascot. Batash, of course, the 126 rated sprinter. But is there anything that can topple this one? And what is the each way value in the King Stand?
I'm going to be very boring here. I mean, as I said, I think Jim Crowley is going to be top jockey. I think he's a really knocking good bet because although we don't know what's in the Diamond Jubilee as we talk, I think that you'll find that Sceptical's chief rival might well be a horse called Kadim, who, of course, came good last year and again represents Charlie Hills and Sheikh Hamdan. For me, the second favourite is a real player here. I think Glass Slippers was really impressive. Did the annual Vedi Vidi Vici on the hapless, helpless and hopeless French at Longchamp and won the Abbey. Kevin Ryan is a master trainer of sprinters. I wouldn't rule anybody out having a squeak each way on this Liberty Beach of Jason Hart and John Quinn. But for me, I think Glass Slippers is a knocking good bet against the favourite because the favourite, if he turns up in his A game, he'll win, but he'll be very short.
Ronan, thoughts on the King Stand?
Yeah, I must confess it's not a race I'd be getting involved in, Barry, because I just think if Batash shows up and is in any sort of form, he'll win. He's no blue point to take him on this year. And, it's just a funny kind of race to analyse from that point of view because, Batash probably should. He does have the odd clanger in him, but signs last year that he's kind of ironed that out a bit more. And, as Michael said there, Glass Slippers, the Kevin Ryan's filly, she won 3 lengths that Abbey from a good yardstick and so perfect. She'd plenty of Group 1, good solid Group 1 form that season, and Glass Slippers put 3 lengths between herself and that filly. It was soft ground that day, so maybe that's a slight worry whether she can do the same on the surface. I know Ascot are anticipating a few showers on Tuesday, and whether that gets into the ground in time, I don't know. But Yeah, look, it's not a race that have delved into much. So if Batash shows up in any sort of form, I think he'll win.
And the second of, I suppose, the midweek shorties in the Group 1s, lads, is at 3:30 at the Prince of Wales Stakes. It's a Group 1 for 4-year-olds and plus over the mile and 2. Japan lines up here. He's never won on seasonal debut, and he is coming back in trip. Mike, had you thoughts on Japan, and would you oppose him?
Yeah, they've done the running order. This is now 3:00. They put the cavalry in at 3:35, known as the Hunt Cup. The one you've got to look at is a Dabe. Won at this meeting last year. So delighting that Tom Marquand learned 3 versus Waltzing Matilda when he was in Australia, winning Group 1s. And I think that a Dabe could just set this up. And I'm not at all sure that Japan isn't better with a longer straight and a chance to wind. It needs a bit of a wind up. And for me, also, I'm fascinated as to why Frankie is riding Medea for John Gosden and not Lord North. But I would be thinking that a Dabe is a horse that you ignore at your peril, and he's fit because he's had those runs in Australia.
Interesting. Roland Headman was one who he won the London Gold Cup at Newbury, and he improved £20 from American 95. He was one that interests me, the Kingman colt. I think at the prices 9-2, I thought he may be value.
Yeah, I definitely think Japan is worth taking on here, Barry, to be honest, for the same reason Michael just said. I think he could be a little bit vulnerable here first time out, and I think he could be better over further as well. I know you obviously won the Judemont International last year, but if you go back and watch that race, he needed every single yard to get up over the extended 10 furlongs of York there. First time up here against horses like a Dabe, like Barney Roy, who's obviously a Group 1 winning miler, like the Fish, Lord North. And, I just think he's worth taking on. As Michael said, I'd be very happy to back Lord North at a price 12-1. But why is Frankie riding Medea? I just don't get that. She's, obviously a good filly. But maybe slight question about her coming back to this trip. And Lord North, I think, is a real progressive sort. That form to be Ellercam at Haydock is pretty strong. He's got a run under his belt. It just put me off. Why is Frankie riding the filly? I don't really know. Dabe is rock solid. And I have to say, Headman I thought was a little short in the market just in what he done. I know he's progressive, but I thought he was found out a bit when he came over to Ireland for the Champion Stakes. I want to take Japan on, and I still might back Lord North at a double figure price. I just think that's too big for his kind of profile. He's really progressive, and I think he could have a big year in him. Soft ground obviously would help a Dabe as well. I think I will look to play in this, and it'll be Lord North or a Dabe. And soft ground, I think if the rain does get into the ground by Wednesday, a Dabe definitely comes into the reckoning.
Perfect. Moving on to Thursday. I'm not sure, Mike, if they've changed the time of this one as well. The 3:35, the Ascot Gold Cup, Group 1, over 2 miles and 4 furlong for 4-year-olds and plus. Another superstar, Mike, here. You must be going to miss Ascot this week. Is it the first time in 20 years you've missed it?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to go because obviously it's behind closed doors. There'll be, I think, 2 members of the press there, and that's it. Everybody else is having to work and do the job at home. And of course, one of the jobs I do, the Royal Procession, Her Majesty will be sitting in Windsor Castle. She won't be there either. And of course, she's got a couple of chances during the course of the week that might give her another winner. So it'll be, Ascot famously joked a few years ago, they put up they used as a marketing slogan, Ascot like no other. This is the year it comes horribly true, I'm afraid. But well done to them, they've got it on. But obviously, it's disappointing. Apart from Aiden, I very much doubt we'll see any runners from Ireland because of the quarantine, apart from obviously Denis Hogan on the Saturday. There's 1 or 2 from France, but the more exotic horses don't look as though they've made the trip. I mean, Wesley Ward's brought a few over. But it's going to be competitive. It's going to be not easy to weigh up. But Stradivarius is surely the ultimate good thing in probably the worst Gold Cup I can remember. There's no depth to it whatever. but somebody's got to finish second, and I would suggest Naif Road, who won the Cigaro. Ryan Moore booked. Mark Johnston was second. I think was DXB second in the race last year, I think. But it's a terrible Gold Cup, and it's been a terrible Gold Cup from the moment that Kew Gardens was taken out of it, and Aidan doesn't have a plan B, so he's not got anything in the race. I think the more interesting question is whether Stradivarius will start shorter than Yates did at any of the time of his 4 romps to glory. That might be an interesting thought for later in the week. But for me, Stradivarius and Naif Road, and let's hope next year's Gold Cup's a better race.
Ronan, thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm not going to take much time on this. I literally agree with everything Michael just said. Stradivarius, I think, will win. Had the run over the 1.5 miles. Don't think he was knocked about too hard that day. He just wins, doesn't he? It's not a strong race. One to chase him home, maybe Moonlight Spirit, unexposed for Charlie Appleby there, might have a bit of improvement in him over this trip. Wasn't beaten far by Technician in that Group 1 in France at the back end of last season. I think he could run okay. But Stradivarius wins, doesn't he? If he shows up in anything like the form he has, he's rock solid, and he should have another Gold Cup on the board.
Yeah, I would be willing to take him on each way here. I suppose we mentioned Technician on the season preview, Ronan. Oisin Murphy, of course, is booked for the Martin Meade 4-year-old. Possibly would prefer a little bit of soft in the description. You know, his 2 Group 1s at the back end of last year. Sorry, Group 1 and a Group 2 in France were on soft. But I thought I suppose, at least a competitor in this division. And I'm willing to stick with him, lads, each way. As Mike said, something has to finish second. 3:35, the Commonwealth Cup, lads, Group 1, over 6 furlongs on the Friday for 3-year-olds. This looks open. Ronan, had you thoughts on this?
Yeah, I quite like the horse that's at the top of the market at the moment, Barry, the Mill Reef winner last year, Roger Varian's Pierre Lapin. I was listening to after he won the Mill Reef at Newbury last season. Roger Varian came on and said they thought he might be a Coventry horse. Things just went a bit wrong. There's quite a gap in between his maiden win and that win in the Mill Reef, and he looked green during the race as well. I thought he was quite impressive in the end. He kind of, like, when the penny dropped, he really kind of strided clear. If you go back and watch the race again, he's a lovely stride and was kind of sprinting away from them at the end. Roger Varian also said that, you know, he really is a horse for next year. So he was quite impressed with what he did that day, that he was able to win a field like that. I think the second ran okay. His name escapes me now. Ran okay behind Pinatubu in the Dewhurst, and the third went on and won a Group 2. That to me seems pretty strong form here, and coming here off you know, first time out, Varian at Zini booked, so they're going to run. I think he's pretty strong and deserves to be at the top of the market. I think he's around 4-1. That seemed like an okay price to me. Not sure what's going to really take him on. Like Southern Hills, I thought was interesting, but got withdrawn at Naas, acted up at the start, so you know that the plan hasn't gone right there. They wanted to run him first. He won the Windsor Castle last year, so Sunday Sovereign is an interesting horse. Was with Paddy Toomey last year. Just hasn't really doesn't seem like it's all gone to plan for him, but could come back another one for Roger Varian. But down, I just didn't think it was the strongest Commonwealth Cup in a race that really has kind of prospered since it's moved into Ascot. They put it there. It doesn't seem to me like it's the strongest one. So, and I did like Pierre Lapin at around the 4-1 mark. So that'll do for me, Barry.
Michael, what's the home challenge like in the Commonwealth Cup?
Well, actually, the problem with this race is actually it's trying to work out what's actually going to go to post is a bigger problem here, because obviously, if you look at it, as I see here talking to you, Lopie Fernandez is still in it and Millar is still in it. And if either of those were to turn up, and you're bearing in mind, you know, you're talking back end of the week, that could blow all plans to smithereens. But I wouldn't lose faith with Southern Hills, only because I like that horse so much when he won the Windsor Castle. And I'm just thinking, Aidan doesn't normally leave horses like that in races unless he's got half a mind to run them. And as I said, provided he doesn't send one of his Guineas squad across, I think he might just be on target for this, and if so, I would think he might go very well in it. Yeah, Pierre Lapin's got it to prove. Inexperienced, just had the 2 runs, done nothing wrong. But the Milreef form, I didn't think was that strong. So for me, if he turns up, Southern Hills might be just worth having a look at.
Moving on to Saturday, guys. The Diamond Jubilee. We just after been speaking to Denis Hogan. Sceptical now, best price 7-2 now in a place for the Diamond Jubilee. Ronan, he wins, doesn't he? Simple as
That's
that.
simple, yeah. I don't know. Look, he's a great story, and Dennis is done fantastic with these horses. Like Make a Challenge last year, picked up for 6,500 guineas and won over 150,000 and ran fourth, obviously, on British Champions Day. And Sceptical has taken him to Ascot as well. Look, it's a sensational story, and if he does win, of course, I'll be cheering him on. I just think if you look at the times that day at Naas, the last day when he looked really impressive, his time actually didn't really back it up. He wasn't that faster than the filly Punita Aurora, who basically ran over the same course and distance earlier on the card. And I just wonder, is he a little short in the market now? Saying that, I don't really have a huge opinion on the rest of the race. A lot of horses just running here first time up. Obviously, that's going to be the case at Ascot a lot next week. So the heart says Sceptical, and the head doesn't really have a plan B at the moment, Barry. So I think I'll just be cheering this on, but I am a bit skeptical about Sceptical if you get me drift there.
Mike, I thought he was sensational at Naas. I was hoping for that big lineup, of course, with Batash. But as Dennis said, it's a long season, and it does give him that extra bit of time as well to, from his run, obviously, last Monday to, say, Saturday versus running on the Tuesday. Thoughts on, I suppose, the decision, first of all, and the race, secondly?
Well, I was surprised for one reason only, that he's going over 6 furlongs and not over 5, because he's got blistering speed. It's as simple as that. And this is a race, that the Diamond Jubilee, that's thrown up shock after shock after shock. I mean, just remember, of course, certain horses only just lasting home to win it, like Black Caviar. I mean, the form, if you're going to back on the basis of the form in the Diamond Jubilee, I'll see you in the poorhouse. And Ronan, you've got a very nice shirt on. You'd have lost your shirt if you're trying to do that, I tell you. For me, Cadem, Charlie Hills, Jim Crowley, I think is a Group 1 winner in waiting. We'll see what happens with the King's Stand and whether anything that runs in the King's Stand comes back out again. But I would be going Cadem each way on the basis of what we know so far. It's great for Dennis. I wish him luck. But I think he should have taken on Batash. And I think that he's been caught because in an ideal world, I think it would have been an easy decision if the races had been the other way around. Namely, that the 6 furlong race had been on the Tuesday and the 5 furlong race had been on the Saturday. I think it would have been a very simple decision. And they've gone for more time rather than, in my view, the ideal race.
Okay, Mike. Youngsters to line up this week. I suppose we don't fully know what's going to run, but we can only speculate at this stage. I suppose Coventry, Norfolk, Queen Mary, Albany. Mike, what's your biggest 2-year-old fancy for the week of Royal Ascot, and where does it run?
Well, I'm looking at the Cheshire Stakes, and on the basis that he turns up. Godolphin had a 1-2 in a race at Newmarket on 1,000 Guineas Day. Charlie Appleby trained both of them. All eyes were on that noble dynasty who they'd spent, the kitchen sink on. And he just got done in the end by a neck by a stablemate called Modern News. So Modern News in the Chesham is my idea of one of the best 2-year-old chances of the week. And if he turns up, I would really delight, and I'm sure Ronan had a good look at this as well. I like that Admiral Nelson of Aiden's that won on 2,000 Guineas Day. Beat what looked a strong field. Shamey Heffernan was on the second. Wayne Lorden was on the winner. And that's the sort of race where Aiden won't just put any old 2-year-old. He'll put one of his smarter ones. But if you ask me at this stage, Modern News in the Cheshire would be my one. If you said to me I could only have one bet this week on a 2-year-old at Ascot, that would be mine.
Ronan, Thoughts on 2-year-olds? I suppose Aidan O'Brien has sent out a couple of smart ones. You mentioned More Beautiful. 2-year-old filly won, of course, the opener at Naas. Chief Little Hawk was impressive at Navan. And Mike mentioned Admiral Nelson. Chief Little Hawk was the one, I suppose, that impressed me the most. And possibly, would he go for something like the Norfolk? I don't know. What was your favourite performance, I suppose, from a 2-year-old, and what's your best bet from a 2-year-old perspective at Royal Ascot?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's take your pick with the Aidan O'Brien horses, and it's conceivable that he's going to obviously be represented in each of the 2-year-old races, and he could go very, very strongly in all of them. You know, it's not ridiculous that he could win 3 or 4 of them, as he usually does, you know. But like this year, even more so, the squad seems to be very strong. I was lucky enough to do an interview with Aidan at the start of the season. He told me that all the Air Force Blues he had, I think he had 3 or 4, were all very, very forward and Ascot type 2-year-olds. I made a note of it in my head and then thought, yeah, so the first one I see I'm going to back. Didn't do that, completely forgot, and obviously Chief Little Hawk goes and does it, gets it done at Navan in really impressive style. He's a big player this week, but as you mentioned, the one I like very much so is the filly More Beautiful. I think she goes for the Queen Mary. Obviously she's in the Albany as well. I just thought she did it really, really well, sprinted away from her field, clocked a good time. Looks pretty smart to me. I think it may be significant that she was given the first day back. She was the first horse entered to run then, so they must have been thinking straight away, let's get a run into her, give her as much time as possible, because she's an Ascot filly. She proved that at Naas, and I think she's a big player, whichever race she goes for, the Albany or the Queen Mary.
Interesting. Todd, another one just to keep an eye out for. He's actually headed the market in the Norfolk Stakes. Is Eye of Heaven for Mark Johnson. According to the algorithm.co.uk, new Timeform website, that was the best 2-year-old seen in Britain this year, Mike. So that's the head of the market, Eye of Heaven, for the Norfolk Stakes if he goes there. But Chief Little Hawk as well will be of interest to me wherever he lines up. Best bets, I suppose, for the week at the current prices. Mike, Vince, take it away.
Well, if you ask me to nap one, I will nap as my best bet of the week. King Leonidas, Frankie, John Gosden, Jersey Stakes Thursday, 2 from 2, expected to be 3 from 3 on Thursday. Typical John Gosden, put the L plates up and take it to the all-weather first time out and improve. And he ticks every box without any exception. So he's my best. I'm fascinated by the Hunt Cup on Wednesday, and what I want to know is why is Jim Crowley on board Al Raja and not the commentator's nightmare that won it last year, Afaq, and Monijam, who of course are in the same ownership. Saying that Afaq won the Hunt Cup in the last 50 yards when you're calling at speed is quite a challenge, believe me. But what I would say is I'm fascinated that he's on the top weight, but Gosden for me and King Leonidas is the nap for the week.
Ronan Groome, nap for the week.
Yeah, I like Pierre Lapin in the Commonwealth Cup on Friday, Barry. I just think a really kind of progressive looking profile now that he's a 3-year-old, and just like the way he did it in the Mill Reef, coming off a big break, looked green, got to the front and really sprinted on when the penny dropped. I think the form of that race is actually all right, and in what looks a kind of weak renewal, I thought he was pretty solid at the top of the market, around 4-1.
Good shout, Ronan Groome. Technician for myself, I think, listen, there's 9 runners in there. If they all go to post, as Mike says, something has to finish second to Stradivarious. I think he's a good each way bet at the moment at his best price, 6-1. And the second one, obviously, I like is Chief Little Hawk. Wherever he runs, I think he is quite smart for Aidan O'Brien. And of course, we can't forget Denis Hogan's Sceptical. Yes, I think he is an absolute good thing on the Saturday, the Diamond Jubilee, and that concludes our Royal Ascot preview for the week, lads. I suppose, Mike, will you have the top hat on at home?
No.
No. Ronan Groome won't have it on anyway.
I don't ever wear a top hat because even when I do that, because as some people may know, I'm lucky enough to do the Royal Procession commentary, and for that reason, I wear a pair of headphones. And if you put a pair of headphones on anybody's head, and then you put a top hat on top of that, they look absolutely ridiculous. Charlie Chan would have nothing on him.
Well, Mike Vince, enjoy, I suppose, your first Royal Ascot from your living room in almost 20 years. Ronan Groome, thanks very much, and I suppose you can back some winners this week as well. And cheerio, lads. We will see you very soon on the Champ.ie podcast.